My kids have been asking me for a Christmas village for a long time, and there are a few reasons why I haven't purchased one yet. Number one is the cost. Even a small house is $30 to $40, and one house does not make up a village. Another reason is because of the color. A lot of times they're really bright and vibrant, and that just doesn't go with my overall Christmas color scheme. So I decided that I would transform a Dollar Tree Christmas house and village into a beautiful winter wonderland. I began this process by picking up 4 different Christmas houses from the Dollar Tree. They were looking a little drab and desperately in need of a makeover. I knew that I wanted to create a winter wonderland centerpiece for my kitchen island, and I knew that these would be a perfect solution. So what I did was I got some spray paint, just a can of white spray paint. I laid them out and I did a couple of coats of spray paint. Now, some of the places were a little bit stubborn, the ones that are really saturated, like the front door, and there were a couple of wreaths that were red. Those were really tricky, and so what I had to do with those, I went back over with some craft paint to get everything stark white. If you wanted to, you could use craft paint to paint the entire house. However, I do like to use spray paint because I think that it coats everything a little more even. It is a lot quicker and it dries faster. Once the paint was completely dry on my house, I decided to embellish it. So I got out the Mod Podge and a sponge brush, and I painted some Mod Podge over the top of where the snow was originally on the house. There was a little indentation, so it was really easy to find out where that snow was. I also put some Mod Podge in the corners of the roof and on other places on the house where the snow would collect naturally. I wanted to create a 3D snow effect on my houses, and this coarse kosher salt was a perfect solution for that. This salt resembles crystallized snow, and I love that it's not quite as shiny as glitter is. It looks a little more natural, like natural snow would. So I sprinkled this all over the Mod Podge, and then I let it dry completely overnight. Once the snow was on, my houses were finished, and I love the transformation. They definitely don't look like Dollar Tree houses anymore. Now it's time for my favorite part. We're going to style our village. I'm going to start off by putting a silk small tablecloth underneath. I just tucked it underneath my large silver tray. This silver tray is the perfect base for my village because it's large and flat. To this, I'm going to add a crystal cake stand. Now you know how much I love variations in heights, so this is going to give me that variation that I need. I'm just going to place it a little bit off to the side so that I have enough room on this side to put my little village houses. And then on top of this, I'm going to add a mini cupcake stand because it's just going to give me one more layer of height. What is a Christmas village without sparkly lights? I got this string of battery operated lights at Tuesday morning. I'm just going to wrap them around the base of my trays, and on top of that I'm going to add this polyfilm stuffing. This is just the stuff that you get at Michael's that you fill up pillows with or other things. It's going to be perfect as my snow since this is a winter wonderland. So I'm just going to evenly space it out on my trays, and it's going to give me a nice bed of snow. Now it's time to add our houses. Before I do that, I'm going to teach you a little trick. As you can see at the bottom, there's a hole so that you can add a battery operated candle to the house so it lights up. But I don't really want to do that, and here's why: because it will take me an extra 30 seconds every night to turn each one of those candles on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my string of lights and I'm going to bend them. These are copper, so they're really easily bendable, and I'm going to poke them through the center of my house. That way I can flick them on and all of the houses will shine with one flick of a switch. The way I'm going to arrange my houses is I'm going to put 2 on the bottom silver tray, I'll put 1 to the side on the cake stand, and then I'll put 1 on top of the mini cupcake stand. To finish off the look, I'm going to use some of these little pieces of garland that I snipped off of one large garland. I'll just scatter those throughout my trays. I'm also going to use some other greenery and some holly berries. If you remember last week, I used this pine cone as a beard on my gnome. Well, we're going to use them again today, and they smell like cinnamon. Yep, they still smell good. So I'll scatter those throughout, and then the final part is just to add a few little gold ornaments. The final element that I'm adding to my village is this glass cloche. By putting it on top of my cake stand, it's going to add some extra height. It's also going to make it look a lot more classy, and the glass will help reflect the warm light that's shining from the lights. Can you believe the transformation? I only spent $4 on these Christmas houses, and I think that our Winter Wonderland village looks like $1,000,000. All you needed was paint, Mod Podge, and coarse salt. It just goes to show that you don't need to spend a lot of money to get a high-end look. You can easily transform or upcycle Christmas decorations that may not be your particular taste or style by simply giving them a coat of paint, a reflective 3D snow surface, and styling them with higher-end decor that will elevate the look of your design. So today we're going to do a gnome that is made out of wood. The hat is going to be made out of sock, and the beard is going to be made out of yarn. It's no-sew, and it's so easy to make. So let's get started. To start off with, you're going to need a form for your gnome. Now, there are a lot of options when it comes to forms. For my fall gnomes, I used a floral cone. You could also cut a triangle out of a styrofoam piece. You could also use some blocks. If your kids have outgrown the blocks and they don't play with them anymore, these are perfect. Or if they don't notice that they might be missing a few, you could use them too. It'll be our secret, I won't tell them. I cut my own. Now I did a 1.5 by 10-inch triangle. I made 2, and I did it 1.5 because I wanted a really thick base. That way when I set it down, it wouldn't topple over and it would be really sturdy. I needed 2 identical triangles, so I thought it was best that I made a stencil. So I got a piece of paper and I traced out a triangle, and then I cut it out, and then I placed it on my piece of wood. And with a pencil, I traced around my stencil, so I had 2 perfectly identical triangles. This is also very important because now I have a guide for my saw when I'm cutting it out. Now, the power tool that I'm using today is my trusty jigsaw. I use this thing all of the time. I cut along the lines that I had traced out onto my wood, and I got my 2 identical triangles. Once the wood was cut out, I sanded down the edges so that they would be clean and smooth. Now that my form is finished, it's time to add the hat. Now, to make the hat, I'm going to use a sock. Yes, just a sock. I got this from the Dollar Tree, and I like to use the longer ones because then my hat is really scrunchy and slouchy, and I like the way that that looks. If you want it to be tighter, then you could just use a regular size sock. Right now they have so many cute shapes and colors and designs for the Christmas season, so you could really choose some of those and go crazy. Also, for my other gnome, I'm going to use a red sock. Now, I got this red sock from my single sock stash by the laundry. You know, the bag that has all the single socks that you are sure have a match somewhere. Well, this one's never gonna find its match. So I'm gonna use it as the hat. And this is also a great way to get a free hat. I'm going to pull my sock over the point and down about 2/3 of the way onto my triangle. And then I'm gonna add some detail. What I'm gonna do is put some ribbons on it, and then I also have these wooden snowflakes. They came in a variety pack with snowflakes and Christmas trees and Christmas presents, and I got them from the Dollar Tree. I'm gonna hot glue one of them onto the center of the brim, and then I'm gonna hot glue the other one onto the point of the hat for some extra character and detail. I ran a line of hot glue around the entire perimeter of the hat, placed my snowflake ribbon in the center, and then pressed firmly so it would all stick together. Next, I added a dab of hot glue to the center of my wooden snowflake and placed it in the center of the ribbon on the brim. And finally, I added another dab of hot glue to the wooden snowflake and then pressed it firmly onto the point of my sock hat. On my red hat gnome, I put a chevron ribbon, I added a sparkly Christmas tree to the center, and then I hot glued a red ornament to the tip of the hat. Now that my hats are on, it's time to add the beard. Now there are so many selections when it comes to beards. For my autumn gnome, I used a mop from the Dollar Tree and it turned out fantastically. You could also use some faux fur. Today I'm going to be using this looped yarn that I got at Michael's. Now I love the little loops in it because it looks like the beard is curly. It also makes it look really, really full, which I love. It's got this ombre effect too in the color variation. It starts at white, it goes to a light gray, and then finally to a dark gray. Now the variation in the tones of the colors is perfect because then you don't have one solid chunk of one color. It is so easy to add the beard onto this form. All you need to do is hot glue the end of the yarn to the back and then just wrap it around the form. Now I made sure that I tucked in the bottom under the top part as I went. Just tucked the bottom under the top. And I also hot glued as I went, that way everything was secure as I was going along. And then when I got to the end of the form, I just snipped the yarn off and then I hot glued it to secure everything together. Now I did add a little mustache to my red hat gnome. I just braided the yarn and I tied the ends with some twine and I hot glued it right underneath the nose. Speaking of the nose, what I did was I used a cotton pom-pom. It came in this variety pack that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm just using the large white ones, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hot glue it right underneath the brim of the hat. To start off today, we're gonna make some bell ornaments made out of terracotta pots. I got these terracotta pots at Michael's. The smallest one was 59 cents, the larger one was 79 cents, so they're super affordable. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to get some spray paint, just this gold spray paint. I'm gonna spray paint the inside, and then I'm going to do the outside. I'll spray a couple of coats so it's really covered, and then I'll let it dry completely. And then I'm gonna add the bell. I got these bells, just this package of bells at the Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna get some twine. I'm gonna thread the twine through the top of the bell, and then I'm going to tie a knot, a double knot so it's really secure, and then I'll trim off the excess twine. Next, I'm gonna take my bell and I'm going to thread the twine through the hole in the terracotta pot. I left my twine longer because I wanted to tie it onto my sign holder later on, and I wanted to make sure that there was enough twine to get a good solid knot on there. I'll get some hot glue and I'm going to glue the twine right into the center of the hole. The glue will just plug up the hole, and then what I'm gonna do is hold the twine in the center while it dries. That way it's even, and when I go to hang it, it will hang evenly. I decided to embellish my bells at the top, so I snipped off a piece of this garland that I got from the Dollar Tree, this 15-foot garland. I just got a little segment and I hot glued it to the top of the bell, and then on top of that I have this thin red ribbon. I tied it into a bow and I hot glued that right around the twine. Next, I wanted to take this Dollar Tree sign and make it shine, literally. So I got a string of 4th of July lights, they're battery operated lights, and I just pulled off the stars and I was left with a plain string of lights. Then I got my drill and I drilled holes in the center of the snowflakes that were scattered throughout the sign. Then I poked my lights through the holes and I taped them in place. I also was able to tape the battery pack to the back, that way it wasn't hanging off the sign. And I was left with this festive, bright sign. Now you don't always have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to Christmas decorating. Sometimes you just need to embellish it. My final DIY is this Christmas ornament garland. It was so easy and simple to make. All I needed was some ornaments from the Dollar Tree and some twine. I simply threaded my twine right through the top of the ornaments and let the ornaments fall. Now I did try and pack them in pretty tightly, but when I did that, the tops came off. I guess you get what you pay for, but it was no problem. I just hot glued them right back on. But after that, I didn't pack them in too tightly together. I left them a little more loose. When I was finished putting the ornaments on my twine, I tied the last ornament on each end with the twine in a knot so it wouldn't go anywhere, and then I left a pretty decent sized segment on each end so I could tie it to my sign display holder. To my sign, I'm going to add a 15-foot garland from the Dollar Tree. I'll just wrap it around the sign. Next, I'm gonna add some red ribbons, some sparkly gold ribbons. I'm gonna add a big mesh bow to the corner. And then I'm going to add my first DIY, which is my garland made out of ornaments. I'll just tie that on. And then I'm going to finish it off with some poinsettias and some berries. Next, we're gonna add our little terracotta bells to our sign. I tied them on at varying heights on either side, and then I'm also gonna take the remaining bells and tie them around my large mercury glass candle holders. Now, at the very beginning, I put some curtain rings that had a clamp on it. That way it could really easily just grab onto the string that was at the top of the sign, and it can hang directly from there. I've also added a lot of other fun and festive items to my foyer table. I have some ornaments, I have some greenery, I've got some sparkly lights. I also added a special key for Santa. Just in case he doesn't want to use the chimney, he can come through the front door. I also have some sentimental pieces. I've got some Christmas notes to Santa that my husband and I wrote when we were children. When I was in 5th grade, I wanted clothes, necklaces, and fake fingernails. That sounds good, right? I don't think that list has changed very much, maybe the fake fingernails, but I'm still down with the clothes and the necklaces. Adding things like that just really shows who you are as a family and your personality. I love walking up to a home during the Christmas season and being greeted by a festive wreath. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Christmas wreath out of magnolia leaves. I live in the great state of Florida, and one of the benefits about living here is that we have beautiful greenery all year long. So I'm taking advantage of that today, and I'm going to use some magnolia leaves. I have a beautiful magnolia tree in my yard. I've used the magnolia leaves before in tall centerpieces. I've used the blooms in a table runner. So it only makes sense that I use these magnolia leaves in a wreath for Christmas. If you don't have access to magnolia leaves, you could substitute them for evergreen branches. You could use some eucalyptus, or you could even use some felt. After I gathered my magnolia leaves, I gave them a good rinse. I got a bucket and I filled it up with some water and I washed them off. Then I got a towel and I laid it down outside and I put the leaves on top so that way they would dry completely, and it took about 2 hours. After that, I got a piece of paper and I laid my leaves out on top of the paper. Then I got some gold spray paint and I sprayed a few coats of paint over the top of the leaves. Now I only did the top side because I didn't want to do the back side because the only side that's going to be showing is the front, and I did a couple of coats until it was really saturated and looked like this. To turn my Magnolia wreath into a Christmas themed wreath, I'm going to add some leaves with some holiday words written on them. I just used a paint marker that I got from Michael's. It was in the paint section and it was $6. However, I used my coupon. I hardly ever buy anything there without a coupon, especially during Christmas season because we want to save our money. We've got lots of gifts to give, right? So what I did was I wrote the words in the center of the leaf, and now I've got some fun additions that I can add to my wreath. Now that my leaves are completely dry, I'm going to add them to my form. I got these forms at the Dollar Tree and I really like them because they have some gaps which are perfect to add my leaves right in between. So I got some hot glue and I added a dab to the end of the leaves and I put them in the spaces that were on the wreath. Now I did it in a random pattern. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't one block of green in one space and one block of gold in another. I just spread them out evenly. I also took my 5 leaves that had the words on those and spread them out evenly as well. For a little bit of extra pizzazz and sparkle, I'm going to cut some of these berries off of a large floral stem and I'm going to hot glue them right in between the leaves onto the wreath. The final step is just to add a ribbon to the top of the wreath. That way we have a way to hang it. I got a 12-inch segment of gold ribbon and I wrapped it around the top of the wreath and then I tied it into a knot. And then I got a little bit of hot glue and I glued the knot in place. That way it wouldn't shift or move when I hung it up. I have some command hooks on my front door and they'll be perfect for hanging my wreaths. I've been trying to think outside the box on the materials that I've been using to create my gnomes. I saw this bottle brush Christmas tree at the Dollar Tree and I thought it would be a perfect pointed bristly beard for my gnome. I'm going to flip it upside down and at the base I'm going to add some twine. I just have this twine and I'm going to cut off a pretty decent sized segment. I'd rather have too much than not enough because I can always trim off the excess, but you can't add it back on once you cut it off. I'm going to get a dab of hot glue. I'm going to put it in the center and then I'm going to hot glue my twine right into the middle. To make my hat, I'm using this red felt. I got this at Michael's. It was only 39 cents. I'm going to roll it into a cone shape, and then I'm going to cut it out. Before I add it to my tree, I'm going to pull the twine through the top of the hat, and I want the hat to stick straight up. So I'm going to add some cotton batting, and this way the hat will hold its shape. Once the hat was filled with cotton, I ran a line of hot glue along the edge of the felt and pressed the seam together. Now it's time to add the nose. Now I've used some pom-poms before on my other gnomes, but I wanted these noses to be just a little more exaggerated, so I'm actually going to use a cotton ball. I'll just get some hot glue, I'll add a dab onto the cotton ball, and then I will stick it right underneath the brim of the hat. And now we're going to embellish the hat. I have some ribbon. I'm going to hot glue that right onto the hat. I also have some wooden stickers that I got at the Dollar Tree. I'm gonna put a star right in the middle of the ribbon and then one at the top of the hat. And then I'm also going to add some mini pom-poms as buttons down the front. For my second gnome, I'm going to use some pine cones. I got this package of pine cones at Michael's for $2.99. They have silver tips that have been dusted in glitter. This is where you can get really creative. You can paint your pine cones white or gray or just leave it natural. One bonus about these pine cones is that they smell like cinnamon. Smells so good, smells like Christmas. So not only are we getting an ornament, but we're getting a bonus air freshener. We are going to create this second gnome almost identically to the first one. Again, we're going to take a large segment of twine, we're going to hot glue it to the top of the pine cone. And then we're going to make a hat, only this time it's going to be gray, this gray felt right here. And I'm going to roll it into a cone shape and then cut it out. Then I will fill it with some cotton batting again. I will make sure that the twine is up out through the top of the hat, and then I will hot glue it together. And then I will get my cotton ball, I'll put a little bit of hot glue on it, tuck it right underneath the brim of the hat, and then I'm going to embellish it. I'm going to get some ribbons, some more of those wooden stickers, and I'm going to add a bell to the top. Now that we're done creating our gnomes, I'm going to tie the twine that's coming up out of the hat into a circle, so we have a usable loop to hang our gnomes. I tied the twine into a slip knot to form a circle, and then cut off the excess twine. Now I have a loop at the top of the hat so I can hang my gnome ornaments, or I can add a Christmas ornament hook to the loop and hang it that way as well. Now that my Christmas gnome ornaments are finished, I'm going to assemble them with the rest of the crew. I put my gnome ornaments in the center of my lantern, I put them on with a Christmas ornament hook, and I let them hang down. I just am so happy with the way that all of my gnomes turned out, from the gnomes today, to our wreath, to our gnome banner, to our wooden gnomes with the looped beard.